Okay, and so for this episode, our final film is American Fiction, which is Jeffrey Wright. I said Jeffrey Rush. Jeffrey Wright um, plays a professor, a writing professor, who is disgruntled and is also trying to write his book. And uh, also, his mother is ill. So he is on sabbatical, goes home and hangs out with his sister, and his sister is kind of getting him up to speed and as to the issues with their mother. And they also have an estranged brother. And then uh, the name escapes me, his character's name.
Monk.
Monk.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I knew it was kind of a jazzer name, but I just couldn't remember Monk. So he he goes to a writers convention, and uh, an up and coming writer. She's played by Issa Rae, and writes a hit novel, which mm, doesn't sit well with him. Just the way it portrays the African American characters. And so, however, he ends up writing a book that is farcical, and he goes into, yeah, creates a nom de plume. And of course, to his dismay and shock, and also somewhat delight because he needs the money, the book takes off. So it's kind of a misidentity type of situation. And and so it's just him trying to reconcile with the popularity of this book that he really kind of wrote as a farce, and popularity, but then also dealing with real life issues. His sister passes away, and she was the primary caregiver for their mother, who was suffering with dementia. And so just kind of adulting, as you know, what we all are facing as we get older. So overall, I did enjoy this movie. Um, but I think my favorite character was the sister, played
Mhm.
by, oh, what's her name? I see her face. Um,
Tracy Ellis Ross.
yes, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with names. I see faces, but I'm horrible with names. She was my favorite character, but she was very, very in it for a short amount of time. And but she kind of gives a true portrayal of how usually it is the females and the families that have to take care of the aging parents. And so what happens when the primary caregiver disappears? So I like that subplot. Um, but I also just really like the whole um he had to write something because he needed to write it, and it became popular despite everything that he wanted to write. So I enjoy that. Not that it was farcical necessarily, but there was some comedic levity in it. So what about you guys? Bo, what do you think?
You you are you are like continuously like enlightening me, like this whole gender reversal thing with you. Like I am not going there with these movies. Like it's amazing. It's fascinating. Like it's I definitely, Kevin and I have both agreed. Like and you probably are, Marcy, a little irritated too. We were both sort of irritated that Tracy Ellis Ross, she kicked the bucket, fairly early on in the film, and it just, she was such a great character, and I feel like maybe they could have done so much more with her character.
Mhm.
Uh, I am not a huge fan of this film. I don't like completely dislike it, but you may have heard me say this before. It's very audience appealing. It's almost like too audience appealing for me. And it felt like it was for made for like direct to prime sort of a thing. Although it's it is it is it is it's been having a good run in the theaters though. So but I I will agree. Some performances are pretty good. I appreciate that Erica Alexander was nominated for supporting in for the Spirit Awards as Coraline, the girlfriend of Monk, and I thought she was a pretty thoughtful character. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Again, it was just too audience appealing for me, and I sort of made this joke like right in the middle of the Toronto National Film Festival. I told TT and Kevin, I said, "Oh, this is going to win their audience award," and like lo and behold, it did. So,
Which is basically the
What?
whole point of what the books, it just not that it doesn't have substance, but the audience appeal. Okay, so just because it's audience appealing, does that make it great? Is that piece of work great? So yeah, just kind of a mirror of itself. So Kevin, what do you think?
Um, yeah, I like this film. I really liked it. And it's kind of the opposite issue that I had with the holdovers, and I have very similar feelings to Bo, I think, on this. I really enjoyed the film and connected with it on an emotional level, but I just had there are some issues. And I think the issue that Bo was speaking about, the way I saw it was its tone. I I really think I think it would have been a better movie if it didn't have the tone. One film I thought of while watching it was Get Out. That's both a critique of the woke white liberal who thinks, I'm not racist, and if everyone were like me, the world would be such a better place because there would be no racism. And both American Fiction and Get Out shows you that's not true. The issues go way, way deeper than we realize. And I thought, Get Out made such a statement, and horror is so incredibly um, such a valuable tool for social critique. And because of the lighter tone in American Fiction, I felt like it didn't make as much of an impact with its commentary as it could have. And again, I find myself thinking about it like I'm beaten up on this movie in my head for not going in the direction I wanted it to. American Fiction chooses its lane, it goes down that lane, and it did it very well. It's my issue if I wanted them to be in a different lane. It would be their issue if they chose to be a lighter comedic film and did it poorly. I don't think they did what they wanted to do poorly. I just think I wish it were something very different. And of course, with the meta commentary there, I'm like, is this like me? Like I'm consider myself a fairly woke white liberal dude myself. Like, here I am I white splaining this movie to because I really shouldn't be. So yeah, I think maybe the movie did work better than I originally thought. Maybe it was more incisive because it's getting in my head that much. Yeah, I think they just kind of, like Bo said, they played it for audiences. They went for mass appeal rather than really getting their hands dirty. I felt like.
So, Bo, what'd you think about the conversation that Jeffrey Wright and Issa Rae had towards the end when they were judging, they were both judges? What'd you think about that
right,
conversation?
Mm-hmm.
right, because she felt that his book was depicted, negative stereotypes, preyed on negative stereotypes of Black community, and he felt that same way about her story, about her book. I think it was a good conversation, the dialogue between them, because I think it helped sort of build your perspective. you get to see each of their point of views, and she may have been coming from the whole like this is overly like masculine maybe, and I think she was probably defending hers more because hers was from the feminine point of view. I don't know if I'm answering your question or not. Okay.
Kevin, what did you think about that conversation?
The thing I loved about that conversation is it shows how complex racism is. When we're being raised as Gen Xers, we were taught to be colorblind. We were taught to be nice to your friends who are different colors than you. And if we were colorblind and treated everyone nicely, then racism just goes away. And I don't want to get too into the conversations. I think it comes at a great point near, like you said, near the end of the film. And I think it really shines a very interesting light on everything that had happened before that. So I'm just going to say it was a phenomenal job of showing how complex these issues are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it was also just that point really elevated the film much more intelligently and just much and introspectively. So yeah, that was a really good moment in the film.
Yes.
Any other thoughts about the film before we rate?
I will say my favorite scene in the film is when when Monk is in his office and he's developing the story, and then he starts imagining the characters, and Keith David shows up as one of the characters as Willie, and I love Keith David and I love seeing him show up in anything, and I just anytime you put Keith David in anything, it's always a nice touch, whether you see him like back in the early 80s like in The Thing, or or the his bit parts in like Nope, and then seeing him in this, it's just fun to see Keith David. I think he's such a great actor, and he always plays like fun characters.
So what rating would you give it, Bo?
I'm giving it 3 stars, 3 X's.
What about you, Kevin?
I'm gonna go with a triple X or 2. 3 X's for me. Although I would put a little asterisk next to that I really do recommend the movie. Like I said, I think that 3 is more a reflection on what I wanted the movie to be rather than the quality of the movie. Like as Bo was mentioning, the audiences in Toronto sure loved it. So I would definitely, even though it's my lowest star rating of the night, I would definitely recommend the movie.
I'm gonna give it a 3 as well. So 3 triple X's. 3 triple X's.
Wow.
So Kevin,
is this a pornographic film?
I was gonna say, yeah.
So Kevin, what would you pair it with?
Okay, I'll keep this short and sweet. I'm gonna go with another movie that is a very insightful analysis of how tenuous and difficult the relationship between creator and audience can be. Misery.
Wow.
Yep. Nice. Okay.
In both movies show art can be pain.
True.
Creative act is a painful one sometimes.
Well, I'm going to go with the theme of hiding behind an identity, and I'm going to program it with Jumpin' Jack Flash and Roxanne. So these are the I'm going to program it with.
Those are 2 super fun movies. Those are fabulous. I love Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see if I can dig it up somewhere in the streaming world. What about you, Bo?
I'm gonna pair this with Do the Right Thing.
Nice. Okay.
Also, mainly because it's Do the Right Thing deals with bigotry and tension and things smoldering, and I would pick that because it's sort of the heavier, probably more I think more profound pick as far as American fiction, which is more, it's a lighthearted take on racial tensions and things like that. So
Mhm.
so I that's that. I'm really just going with the first thing that pops into my head. I'll be honest, I didn't really think long and hard about any of these picks.
Yeah, the way I pick them is whatever when I'm watching a film, whatever pops up in my mind, like, oh, this reminds me of blah blah blah. That's usually how I come
Mm.
up with it. Sometimes I do have to think really hard because that doesn't happen. That something popped up, then I got to really think hard on it. But yeah, but I'm like you, just go with the flow. What about you, Kevin? How do you pick your programs?
Honestly, what I do is I pick one element of the film, and then I feel embarrassed. I usually Google. So like I Googled best courtroom movies of the 80s when
Hmm.
I was thinking about Anatomy of the Fall, and just kind of went through that. So yeah, I'll find like an element or a theme that I pick up, and sometimes I can think of it. Like Misery was one off the top of my head. Like that one came right away to me. I had to go through a big list of courtroom dramas, and it's funny as I went through the list of the top things like the top 80 1980s courtroom dramas. I was amazed at how few I've actually seen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's kind of how I do it. I just pick a theme or an element. Because I kind of like the juxtaposition in mind, right? Like, like creating art is painful, but there's couldn't be two more different movies than Misery and American Fiction. And I like to see different things kind of clash that have a similar thread to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I think this concludes this episode of the Gen X Lens. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
You
I
had
would
to bring.
say
Oh,
go
sorry,
go
Kevin.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I want to go last this time. You go.
No, Marcy, you had to bring up Jumpin' Jack Flash. Now I'm thinking of her like when she's first talking to Jonathan Price on her terminal, and he thinks like she's another spy or something, and he's asking her like, I need you to get more things from her. And she's like, get what? I work at a bank. I just, Whoopi
Yeah.
Goldberg was so genius in those days, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But as far as final thoughts, yeah, I mean, the three movies we discussed, American Fiction, Anatomy of the Fall, uh, The Holdovers, go see them, everyone. If you haven't
Mhm.
already, go see them.
Yeah.
And
Find
Kevin?
find find ways to see them.
Yes. I maybe I shouldn't have gone last. I was gonna say that too. And I think they're all going to be talked about throughout award season, which we've got almost 2 months left until the Oscars. These are all definitely going to be up for a bunch of awards on Oscar night, and people complain about when the Oscars finally pop up. They're like, I've never seen any of these movies, and I think the issue with that is like a lot of these movies aren't things that everyone really wants to see, right? They're not, the Marvel. They're not the made for mass consumption. Really, they're more art house. But you can't go wrong, I think, with any of these three movies. If you are a little intimidated by art house or Oscar bait films, these are your gateway films. Watch all three of these. You'll love them.
Mhm. All right. Well, guys, thanks again for hanging out with me and talking films. And everybody, stay tuned until next time and just keep watching movies. All right. Bye, everybody.
Enjoy.